What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Celtics Talk Podcast here on the NBC Sports Boston Podcast Network, coming to you on the heels of a very busy trade deadline day. The Celtics making moves, 3 total, 7 players going out, 2 coming back. Kind of a wild day for, especially when the Celtics early maneuvering looked like might be all they did, and then things got a little wild. We're going to play for you some highlights from a trade deadline show with me, Amina Smith, Brian Scalabrine, kind of breaking down the day. But off the top here, just going to try to set the table and tell you where my head's at as we digest the 3 moves made by Boston, as I sit in this very white, very light room here at the media center that we operate out of. All right, so let's start at the top. Celtics, first move of the day, kind of nondescript, trading Bol and PJ Dozier to the Orlando Magic to get under the tax. $4.1 million worth of salary going out. A couple what could be conditional second-round picks involved there. Celtics won't ever see theirs. The Magic might see theirs down the road, but essentially the Celtics paying the Magic to take on those players. And okay, one of the primary goals of the day, dipping below the tax. Why does that matter? Celtics are in line, if they hadn't got below the tax after their moves today, to have to pay even a small amount, say $3-4 million. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you miss out on the rebate. There's so much spending going on around the league, especially with teams like the Golden State Warriors and the Brooklyn Nets, that teams are in line for a $10-11 million rebate after the season. They split up the money from all the taxpayers and give it to the non-taxpayers. So the Celtics in a season where they're not surefire contenders elected to get below that line, and they'll reap the benefits of it. Why does that help the team? Well, it pushes repeater penalties further out. So if they spend in future seasons, it's not going to be prohibitive, at least not until like the 24-25 season, and maybe further if I try to do the math in my head. And you can maybe if there's a move to be made this summer that the Celtics aren't as bashful to do it, because they'll have the resources and they'll almost certainly be going into the tax next season. But maybe you feel a little bit more confident about this team's ability to compete if they figure some stuff out here at the end of the season and show that they can hang on the level of the Brooklyns and Milwaukees of the world. From there, I felt like, then maybe the Celtics would be quiet, but no. Then came word that the Celtics were trading Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, and a first-round pick to the San Antonio Spurs in exchange for Derrick White. As you'll hear on our trade broadcast special, I'm very bullish on what Derrick White can do. Not a player that I expected to be available, despite the Spurs sort of being in that weird kind of trying to figure everything out. With DeJounte Murray, he paired well in that backcourt, but there are a lot of guards down there, and San Antonio electing to sort of hitch its wagon to Murray as they move forward, and getting Josh Richardson there. Now, let's start with the negative side. The Celtics had to give up a first-round pick. That's going to be tough to stomach. You never want to have to give up that, especially when it felt like the Celtics were preserving those picks for a potential splurge this summer or sooner. But they send out the 2022 pick. That means that for the second straight year, they won't have a pick. Part of me says now they haven't been able to develop these guys and they haven't had playing time for them. So maybe it's not the end of the world, but certainly draft picks, especially as your roster starts to bloat in terms of cost, is important to filling out this thing. And now, even the guys that are still on the roster, Celtics trying to figure out where they fit and what their future is with the team. And obviously Romeo Langford, a former number 14 pick, that goes out as well from that 2019 draft. And while it's understandable, like Romeo was entering the final year of his rookie deal coming up next year. Would the Celtics pay to keep him around? Has been healthy enough to stay on the floor, consistent enough? Celtics ultimately making the determination to throw him into this trade to make the money work. Celtics will generate a trade exception for Josh Richardson outgoing money by taking Derrick White into the Evan Fournier trade exception. That gives them a little bit more time to utilize that down the road. But the positive sides for Boston here is that Derrick White could be super. Oh, and one last thing on Romeo Langford is that obviously we'll always look back and wonder what could have been. Even Tyler Hero going off the board one spot earlier, but not only that, but the Celtics had a lot of ability to make trades in the ramp up to that draft or before it. Having that glitzy Sacramento pick, a lot of us thought, given Sacramento's struggles, It could have been a top 5, top 10 pick. Instead, it slides all the way to 14 that year, and you miss out on the opportunity to land an impact player. I do think Romeo has the ability to develop in a system that can nurture his development and give him playing time, but just felt like it wasn't going to happen here. So the Celtics swallow hard on that pick and move on. Getting Derrick White, very excited about what he can do defensively. I think the Celtics have shown they have a defensive identity right now, and I'm eager to see what Derrick White can bring. He's also a great playmaker, 5.6 assists per game. Now that's 30 minutes a game. He will get that, though, even coming off the bench, which I do think will be his role at the start here, because the Celtics aren't going to want to tinker with that first group. But they also have the ability that he could pair well with the core four, especially late in games. I think that's a defensive quintet that could really cause teams headaches and lock down when those guys are all locked in. So very eager to see how he pairs. I think it will be less maddening than some stretches when we were watching Dennis Schroeder out there. And understand that Dennis Schroeder gave them a nice offensive jolt at times, but this is an upgrade for the Boston bench. He will have some big shoes to fill. Josh Richardson played way better than most of us could have expected, shooting over 40% for three for much of the year. Celtics, I thought he paired well with this group as well and had good chemistry, but Celtics valuing what Derrick White might become and whether he can be sort of a key piece of this core moving forward. I think that's the big takeaway for me is, well, beyond the fact that Brad Stevens is not bashful, is that the Celtics might think that Derrick White has a real chance here to be whether it's a starter level contributor or a key part of this group. I think what the Celtics have sort of shown us is this core four of Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. They trust in a whole lot, and the numbers have borne that out, that they have played some exceptionally high level basketball. And instead of like hunting for the big splash, maybe it's just finding the right pieces around them. So very intrigued to see how Brad Stevens, what the next steps from here is. They can still use Al Horford's contract in the summer to pursue other deals. There will be other avenues. They still have, after this 2022 draft, they'll get sort of a reset. They can use their 23, 24, 25, whatever picks. You got to stagger them every 2 years if you throw multiple, but they'll have an ability there to make some moves. Now, 2028 was included in this swap to get Derrick White. There will be a swap with the Spurs that year. It's hard for me to wrap my head around how that'll look. Jason Tatum will be like 30 years old at that point, 31 years old. We might be driving around in flying cars. We'll find out. But the Celtics are going to have to know that if they do go into a little bit of a rebuild at any point, that the Spurs pick will likely be swapped, and that could add a layer of complication to keeping this thing afloat further down the road. But Celtics are putting the focus on the now, which is understandable. Final trade, Dennis Schroeder goes out in sort of a buzzer beater to the Houston Rockets. Celtics bringing back Daniel Theis, also moving out Bruno Fernando and Enes Freedom. Look, Ime has been leaning on an 8-man rotation. You had to move Richardson and Schroeder, but you feel pretty confident that Derrick White and Daniel Theis are gonna play for this team, are gonna be pretty hefty presences. Theis has great chemistry with this group. Isn't gonna be a lot of reacclimation period with him because of his familiarity with this group. So good. I feel like they upgraded at the sort of 6 and 7 spots on this roster. The question is, do they leave themselves vulnerable? I'm hoping this leads to more playing time for Peyton Pritchard. Maybe Aaron Nesmith gets some more reps. They're thin at the wing. Grant Williams should still have a robust role. So I don't know how deep Ime will go. It's probably still capping out at 9. Maybe they go to 10 on certain nights, playing the bench if these guys can get lopsided games. But all part of the equation here as we factored in. Now, the big topic will be what happens on the buyout market. You'll hear Scal and me throw around some names. A couple else I'd throw in there. Obviously Robin Lopez, if they need a sturdy body to be that sort of third, fourth center on this team, just for those nights when you play Embiid, when you play a bruiser of a center, when you need some extra heft to go against a Giannis. So Celtics need to consider that. And I think they'll look for some shooting, but I think the first opportunity is going to go to these young guys, which makes these first few games as the Celtics sort of start cobbling together that roster, maybe exploring buyout options, very important for those young players. So again, my big takeaway is, we spent all these years sort of lamenting Danny Ainge and his lack of deadline activity in recent seasons. Sometimes it backfired. He was aggressive last year, and Evan Fournier did not pan out. And then the Celtics scrambled, had to give up Daniel Theis and Javonte Green to get under the tax in that instance, and it hurt the team a little bit coming into this season. Brad was not bashful, did not sit around waiting for the summer to tinker with this thing, maybe inspired by his team's play the last 6 games and really for the month of January into February. A lot to be excited about. So I'm bullish on what the Celtics did. I think they deserve solid marks for it. That doesn't mean that 3 years from now we'll feel the same, maybe not even a season from now. But we're going to get a chance to see how it looks and whether Derrick White can be a key piece of this core. If he does emerge as the sort of player that fits well. And remember, Ime Udoka coached him for 2 seasons in San Antonio. Jason, Jalen, and Marcus got to play with him on Team USA in 2019. There's a familiarity there. Now that core wanted to play with Tristan Thompson, so it's not like they can always pick the best guys, but it feels like Derrick White was sought from much of the core of this team, and the coach and Brad trying to find the right pieces to put around them. His playmaking ways could be really important here if you can find that shot that has escaped him a little bit this year. And like I said, I think his defense is going to be excellent. And the Celtics cashing out high on Josh Richardson in that instance. So big stretch of games coming up here. 4 very good opponents coming up in terms of like Atlanta and Denver, Brooklyn after the break. So we'll find out very quickly where the Celtics stand. And obviously the Eastern Conference got a whole lot better. We'll get into that on the trade deadline special. So let's get right into it. Here, first section of the trade deadline show is all about the Celtics and digesting the news, how me and Scala feeling about where the Celtics stand, maybe about what happens this summer. And then you'll hear us talk on the backside about the off-season, the other moves in the Eastern Conference and where the Celtics sort of slot amidst the beasts of the East right now. And so go check that out. Like, subscribe, check us out on the YouTube page. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk Podcast.
Welcome into our Celtics trade deadline special. Scal, Chris Forsberg, Amina Smith here with you. And what a day around the NBA. A blockbuster trade between the Nets and the Sixers. The Celtics making some moves of their own. Daniel Theis returning to Boston. Of course, a crazy day around the NBA and really Christmas Day for you, Chris Forsberg, because we've been counting down to this day so you could rejoice and have your moment. But what would you say is your assessment of how Brad Stevens did today at his first trade deadline?
Yeah, big picture, like bartering Brad. We got to come up with a word for it. 3 deals, 7 players going out, overhauls this entire bench. He got a little frisky to me. Like, he made trades that I didn't think he would do, which in terms of draft picks going out and taking on salary. But it's clear they wanted to overhaul this bench both for now and possibly moving into the future. I'm excited to see what this new look group looks like and whether it can propel this year's team forward and scale what it means for the future.
Yes, I think this has a little bit to do with the future as well. I think Daniel Theis is an excellent addition. You think about Al Horford and what he does. Daniel Theis, probably not as good as Al, but does the same type of thing, so you have lineup flexibility. And Derrick White, I'm really interested in. I know a lot of people around the NBA love him. He has that tough mentality. So I think he'll really fit in with this team, and he's versatile. Offensively, a lot of people talk about him defensively and how he can guard multiple positions. Guard's the best player on the floor. So, a lot of people are really excited about this. For me, I know the rumors and all the talk that Derrick White is an amazing defensive player. I want to see it because the Celtics run a unique defense. They rotate out, they scram out of mismatches, they switch almost all ball screens. So could be a new thing, a new challenge for Derrick White. But as of right now, when you look at this on paper, I'm really excited that the players that they surrounded this team with that is already winning I think these players accentuate what they're already doing well.
Well, let's take a look at it on paper, that trade between the Celtics and the San Antonio Spurs. Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, and a top 4 protected 2022 first-round pick gets sent to the Spurs for guard Derrick White. Spurs also get the right to swap a 2028 first-round picks. And White averaging around 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists so far this season. Forsberg, I'll start with you. You talk about Derrick White, and you seem a little excited in the newsroom about his addition. What can he bring to the Celtics roster?
Why I'm bullish is, of all the Celtics trades they made today, and really outside of the Harden and Simmons swap, I felt like Derrick White was one of the best players that was out there. The Celtics got the best player in all their dealings. And now, will it translate? He's got to come in here and do it. And he's going to find a new role probably, because he's going to probably be coming off the bench. But his elite defense and and the way he can take on the challenge. Like, you go back and rewind the tape, he was defending Jason Tatum at the end of games. He's picked up Booker. He is not afraid to take on those challenges, and so that will fit perfectly. Like, he's going to earn Ime Udoka's confidence immediate out of the gates. The only thing I'm leery about with this deal is that they did have to give up a first-round pick to make it happen. You know, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe the Celtics are just banking on, all right, we've got our core, we've got our pieces, we're just building around them, we still have salary to make deals. But anytime you have to give up a first-round pick, I get a little bit uneasy. It does mean that you can't make moves before the draft. You're probably gonna have to wait till the summer. That might not matter either. And it's weird to say, but like 2028 draft swap. Like, it's not, we'll probably be driving around in flying cars by then, but it might still matter because we have no idea how good these teams are going to be at that point and what it will mean.
I would like to bring this up, and this is how I see it, and I could be completely wrong by it. By giving up this first-round pick, it does seem like to me that we're probably not in the ballpark to trade for a blockbuster guy, because it seems like, let's use Brad Beal.
Sure.
Okay, so like the Washington Wizards, if they want to part with Brad Beal, they're going to be looking for some draft capital. So by us doing this, and I could be wrong by this, but it feels like the Celtics are maybe not closing the door on that, but almost like keeping it like just a bit open, because I just feel like that pick would open up the world to a bunch of deals, which is part of the reason why they want to get under the tax, I would think. So talk me off that ledge.
We'll get to this in a little bit, but I like the way I'll explain it is, so you can't do anything before the draft, right? Because you can't trade your first round pick in multiple years. So if you're going into the draft, you can't trade 22 and 23.
Yeah, but you could say, we're going to do this trade in 5 days.
Right, and that's fine.
So I don't say, you say you can't.
So
that doesn't mean you can't.
I think the window is still open because you still have Al Horford's money that can be like the centerpiece of whatever you build around. And instead of trading 2022, now you're saying, okay, maybe 23, 25, and 27.
Teams aren't going to do that for a star. They want a name.
This is more so planning for down the line. Yeah. It sounds like
but
this isn't something that's going to happen in 1 to 2 years, like an immediate future.
But to me, it feels like this move, like Forsberg's right. It always leaves the door open, but like Forsberg, basically all those reports about this guy coming here and that guy coming here. With this move, that kind of like, we should squash those reports. We shouldn't be doing you telling how we're going to get this guy in free agency every show with this first-round pick being out.
Are you trying to take away my livelihood?
No, I'm not. I'm saying with this pick going out, it doesn't feel like we're going to get like one of the major Damian Lillard, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like we're going to get Bradley Beal.
Those were somewhat unlikely to begin with, and I'll just I'll just say that they're still in the game for some of those players, but I think what they've identified is they really like this core, and maybe it's as simple as let's find some high-level players around them that don't cost $1 billion and can fill out this core. It's all about finding the right pieces, and Derrick White might be part of it.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I do think that this is the right group. Right. I've never wavered from this. I'm on the Marcus Smart is good enough to be the point guard of this team. I like the pillars of this team. I don't think we need another guy out there, like another superstar $40, $50 million player. I don't believe that. I think we have everything in place. I do think that this move solidifies that.
Really quick on Josh Richardson, I was actually surprised that he was traded away because he's helped this team offensively so much so far this season. But Forsberg, your thoughts on his time being up as a Celtic?
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is that Josh Richardson way outperformed what I thought he would do coming in. And I do think the Celtics might have just said, maybe we're selling high here. Like, is he going to maintain 40% shooting? And the other thing I don't like, he had really good chemistry with this group. So there's always a risk involved. But I think the Celtics are seeing this long-term vision of what Derrick White can bring and are like, okay, we're not moving Marcus Smart. We don't have a lot of other tradable assets, so maybe that was the guy.
So this puts pressure on Derrick White. He has to be better than Josh Richardson.
Yeah,
you have to.
Considering how good Josh Richardson was in half a season.
Not going to be easy.
No.
Yeah, Josh Richardson was as he went along this season, he was amazing for this team defensively. He showed me that he had defensive versatility. He showed me that he can go to the basket. He showed me that he can make a shot. He shot a higher percentage this year than he did in the past. And Ime and him, Ime allowed him to go out there and hoop. So for me, listen, these guys, I always live by this. Brad Stevens, the scouting department, they know more than I do, right? But I'll say this, though, that Derrick White has to be better, a lot better. If they're giving up the first-round pick and Josh Richardson, he has to be a lot better than Josh Richardson. And he has to make a difference for our team.
And Romeo. Shout out Romeo.
And Romeo. All right, let's take a look at that other trade today between the Celtics and the Houston Rockets this afternoon. Dennis Schroeder, he's gone. Bruno Fernando and Enes Freedom are heading to Houston, while Daniel Theis, though, makes his return to Boston. and his freedom is expected to be waived as well. Daniel Theis being back in Boston, Scal, just kind of feels right.
It does.
How does he fit into what the Celtics are trying to build with their core?
All right, so with this whole thing that Ime's been doing lately defensively, bringing Rob Williams off the ball. And so I look at it like, well, that's phenomenal, and you want to continue to do that. Like, Rob doesn't guard fives when he's out there. So now you have Al Horford doing his job. Daniel Theis is like a little bit lesser version of Al Horford, and by the way, could have a better night on certain nights than Al Horford does. So it allows you to have an incredible amount of defensive versatility with this team. You can have a lineup with Al Horford, Theis. You can have Rob Williams, Theis. You can go what they currently do with the starters. Grant Williams could slide in there. So what Theis provides, he could be a five-man. He can be a rim runner. He can also stretch the floor. So he is the perfect five-man for what you need right now. There's probably, outside of guys who make $20 million, like the Draymond Greens of the world, Theis is a perfect fit for this. I think Brad Stevens knows it. Al Horford's going to enjoy having him here. I think Al Horford has been tremendous this year. I would love to see Al Horford's minutes around 22 to 25.
I was going to say, what does that mean for Al Horford with Daniel Theis coming into the mix?
It's great for him. Because, like, Al Horford should not have to play 32 minutes a night. Like, and Daniel Theis can make up for that. The best version of Al, not just now, but throughout the entire playoffs, and maybe in the playoffs you play him a little bit more, but Ime has to feel like, dude, I feel comfortable having Theis and Rob Williams out there. He can stretch the floor. Defensively, he can move his feet. He could switch out. It is a perfect addition to this team, and I like what they have. Like, when you look at the bigs, besides not having a giant Robin Lopez type of guy out there to guard Embiid, I would feel comfortable in any other series outside of Philly right now.
Yeah, look, I love that they have familiarity with Theis. I think that's going to be good from the big man combinations you can deploy out there. To remember how good Jason Tatum was coming off those screens and him curling to the basket. I just think that the trade deadline is always tricky because you're usually getting guys that don't have a familiarity and asking them in within 28 games to figure it out. Well, Theis is going to step in and just have familiarity up and down this roster. He can just, you don't even have to you just plug and play. I know it's a new coach, but it's still going to be a lot of familiarity there. And I'm excited for Celtics Twitter because all the memes and pictures of Daniel Theis come back.
And we also knew that Dennis Schroeder, his time in Boston, wouldn't be long on a one-year deal. Forsberg, I don't know, did the Celtics get enough for Dennis Schroeder?
Oh, yeah.
Did they get enough?
So here's the thing. We were sitting here saying, well, are you going to settle for a second-round pick? Are you going to take, like, a wing that probably wouldn't have played? They got, like, a legitimate big man who, if Al Horford gets injured, can start if he needs to, who can pair with anybody. This is about as high-level a player as I would have thought they could get for Dennis Schroeder, and my expectations were really low, and that was part of the reason I actually thought there was a chance they would hold on to him. But once Derrick White came into the fold, it was clear they wanted to move on, and to get off Schroeder, Bruno, and Ennis, and be able to bring back a serviceable player, that to me is a home run deal.
Yeah, I don't understand how we got this deal done. Okay. In my world, with the Celtics, getting Daniel Theis for Schroeder and getting off of the other salary, Grand Slam? I mean, it's.
Do you think Brad was like, wait, you don't want any picks with this deal?
I kind of felt like.
He probably didn't even ask it all. He probably was like, I'm not going to say anything. I kind of felt
like, wait, that's all you want? All right. So, yeah, I think, if you sign Schroeder, you get nothing. You didn't give up any assets to get Schroeder. But then you come away with Daniel Theis, for that. That's huge for them. They couldn't have signed Daniel Theis last year. So this is I think this is an absolute home run.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the day for Brad Stevens from a 50,000-foot view. A lot of wheeling and dealing. The Celtics traded 7 players and have acquired Derrick White. Along with Daniel Theis, PJ Dozier and Bol Bol traded in order for the Celtics to stay under that luxury tax. Boston now has 5 open roster spots. So what does that all mean? Let's take a look at that depth chart. You got 3 guards, you got 4 forwards, and 3 bigs, and Rob Williams, Al Horford, and Daniel Theis. And of course, those 5 roster spots open. You see that at the bottom. Scal, I think about a lot of the young players on this roster. What does that mean for players like a Peyton Pritchard or an Aaron Nesmith?
Well, those guys, in the NBA, you always get your opportunities to play. Those guys, it's now time to deliver. With no Schroeder there's no excuses, right? And 5 open roster spots. There's going to be a gap. There's going to be a window in which those guys are going to get a chance to play. And do the Celtics go out and say, we need to go sign, a versatile wing that can shoot and defend, and because we don't believe in our guys right now, or do the Celtics give these guys a chance and they prove that they can do that, so then they shift their focus into going out there and trying to get a big man. So what it means for them, it's a big moment for them. Like in the NBA, you get opportunity, and it comes and goes. And sometimes, like Peyton Pritchard comes in, he plays well, but then he goes back out because then our shooter's there. Like this is going to define their careers, well, at least in Boston. And this is a big opportunity for both those guys to establish, and they got to come in. Now, I know both those guys work. They're like one of the hardest working guys on the team. But now they got to go out there and play, and they have to deliver. It's part of the NBA. And I don't want to hear the excuse of, well, there's no rhythm, and I don't know what I'm going to play. This is it. This is your moment. This is your opportunity. You go out there, and if you make it happen, you'll be a part of this team, a part of this rotation. If you don't, then the offseason comes, and we'll see what happens.
Getting a guy like Derrick White now allows probably Peyton Pritchard to play alongside on some bench units. I think in my mind especially, like he had to be sitting there today. Like most young guys are worried about they're going to get traded. He's probably like, when is this Richardson trade coming down so I can get some playing? I mean, the Schroeder trade coming down so I can get some playing time. And I think he has to be ready. Just like you said, Scal, especially here in the infancy, both him and Nesmith, if they get chances, they got to grasp it. And there's no excuse about playing with reserve lineups. And, it's not going to be as clunky anymore. They're going to be out there with real guys. And they need to show it. Like they waited as long as possible for Romeo Langford, and it never happened. So I hope that when we hear Brad talk about this team needs shooting, and they didn't go out and get any, and maybe they will in the buyout market, but Brad has also said sometimes that comes internally. And whether it's Nesmith, Pritchard, Sam Hauser coming up from Maine, whatever the case may be, these young guys got to be ready to infuse a little bit of that.
You mentioned that buyout market, and the Celtics, they've been slowly climbing in the standings, 6 straight wins. And we went from before saying, okay, this team could get into the playoffs, and now they could actually be competitive in the playoffs. What does that buyout market look like for the Celtics right now?
You want to list your favorites first? I want to give you the floor. I like your list, so I just want you to go for it.
My number one in the buyout market, Robin Lopez. Get him out of. I know he spent so much time down in Walt Disney World. I know he likes Mickey Mouse and all that. But come to Boston, and you could do your thing up here. We need you for many different reasons, right? Number 2 in the buyout market, Derrick Favors. Like the guy can defend the rim, he can guard. And all these guys, I have Embiid on the brain, and the Bucks in general, because Lopez played for the Bucks, but the Bucks are a physical team, so you're going to need more size up front. And number 3, bring back Taco Fall.
Okay.
There's my 3 in the buyout market. I would be fine in that particular order, but I really believe like a Lopez Favors, and I'm even fine like having Taco Fall and like training him like he wakes up every morning, he looks at Embiid, he works out.
Is it like material for the morning mirror?
When they go to film, Taco goes to another room and he watches Joel Embiid. That's all he watches. And so I would be fine with all 3 of those guys, because I just think that, and this is against Embiid, you need specialists. You need a guy just to spell, Al Horford and Daniel Theis, or even Rob Williams if he's going to be on him, to spell him for like 10 minutes in a game. Maybe 6 minutes in the first half, wear Embiid out 4 minutes in the second half. So that's my my buyout dream list.
And that's what my mind goes to. Is like, who are you bringing in as that sort of bruiser center who can just give you 10 minutes against Embiid? And that's not going to be easy to find, but names will trickle out. The Celtics are thin at the wing position. If for whatever reason they're not confident with leaning on Nesmith, I do think there will be names out there that will be attractive. We've heard Bembry in Brooklyn is going to get waived because of their additions. I wonder if they'd be someone intrigued to bring in a veteran like that.
Wait a minute. I want to know your list. You're telling me what you think their list is.
Scal gave his pitch for who he wants.
Yeah, your number 1 pick in the buyout market. Don't take my guys.
No, honestly, I don't want anybody, because I'm so worried that veteran players are going to get time over the young guys in this instance. And I know the young guys haven't.
You think the young guys are better than anybody else?
I don't know if they're better, but it's more important to the long-term future of this franchise to find out what they've got than to just say we need a Bembry in case there's 6.
I agree.
All the headlines have been about James Harden and his new home in the Eastern Conference with the Philadelphia 76ers. It's a trade everyone's been clamoring about. James Harden to the Sixers for Ben Simmons, and here's a look at the deal. In addition to Ben Simmons, Brooklyn also receives Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round draft picks. Sixers, they get Paul Millsap in addition to James Harden as well. Everyone talked about scary hours with the Brooklyn Nets with KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. However, Scal, I can't help but look at this Sixers team and think about James Harden teaming up with Joel Embiid, who's averaging about 30 points per game right now.
Sure.
and looking at that team and thinking they're scary as well.
Yeah, no, this is what happened. The East got so much better with this trade because Philly was not real, in my opinion. I know this is I didn't look at Philly as a championship level team. Now they are. And I didn't look at Brooklyn that much as a champion with the whole James Harden not happy, Kyrie Irving, no home games, Kevin Durant, they're not physical enough. So I kind of I didn't think that those two teams could beat Milwaukee. Now with this trade, Philly can beat Milwaukee, and for sure the Nets can beat Milwaukee. Miami's in there, Toronto, then us, and Cavs and Bulls, and it's just goes on and on and on. The East is the beast, but this trade in particular did make it so these Eastern Conference playoffs are going to be off the charts.
I'm just fearful. Again, I keep saying it. Whenever you go up against Embiid, you have to worry about putting him on the free throw line 20 times. Now you've got the other guy who can get to the line 15 times. It's like they're just going to live there. And I don't know how you counteract that when they play it to the level that they do. If you're a Celtics fan, you're crossing your fingers and somehow hoping that this combusts on both sides, but it's probably not going to. And good on Philly, because I thought for sure they were going to have to give up Maxey or Thibault.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And I understand it, Seth Curry loss is huge and they need more shooting, but man, Doc Rivers pretty much sacrificed. He's now traded his son and his son-in-law at various times.
Yeah.
And just ruthless to win.
I'm surprised. I couldn't believe that Brooklyn did not get Maxey.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, if they need Tyrese Maxey because his energy is contagious for their team, and Kyrie's a low-energy guy on the defensive end. So the fact that that Philadelphia has James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, they got Thibault, they got Harris, they got Embiid. That's legit. And what you're saying is, I get it. You're looking at the Celtics matching up with Philadelphia. Whoever comes out of any Philadelphia 76ers series is going to be beat up.
Yeah.
So, the same thing with the Milwaukee Bucks. So this is going to be just a battle of attrition to see who can get through. And I do think there's 8 teams. I don't think there's 8 teams that can go to the finals. But I do really believe that, depending on matchups, there's 8 teams that can go to the Eastern Conference Finals.
And on the flip side, the Brooklyn Nets, they get Ben Simmons. And I know a lot of people like to focus on Ben Simmons' offense. However, his defense has been good in past seasons. Scal, just how much of a right fit is Ben Simmons for what the Nets are trying to do, which is win a championship?
Yeah, so when you look at Ben Simmons, he can't be your best player on the wing. With Philadelphia, they had Embiid, and Simmons was supposed to be their best wing player. That's never going to work. But he's playing off of Kevin Durant, and if Kyrie Irving is playing all these games, and Ben Simmons could be out running the floor. If Joe Harris comes back, Joe Harris loves to run in transition and shoot transition threes. So he's going to really fit in with them. And he's the kind of guy that can guard Giannis, so he could take pressure off of Kevin Durant. One kind of underrated part of this move with Andre Drummond going to Brooklyn, Brooklyn wasn't physical enough. So them getting Drummond, Drummond's a physical presence. Whether you like Drummond, don't like Drummond, he makes $2.5 million, and he's a big-time physical presence in the paint. So the Nets kind of shored up a few things, but I think Ben Simmons is going to be amazing playing off of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant made those rookies that we just blew out, we were up 28-2. Kevin Durant, if he was playing in that game, it could have been a close game. That's how good he is. And he's going to make Simmons just an absolute next-level type of player. I
mean, Kyrie and KD get great shots as it is, and now you got Ben Simmons able to facilitate and then do it all on the defensive end. I do hope, I know it was maddening for Sixers fans, and I can't imagine going through all that, but I do hope he, embraces the situation, is somehow invigorated by it. I'll be interested to see what kind of player Ben Simmons is, but outside of that spotlight, sometimes guys just need to change the scenery, but I don't know. There is still that combustibility factor, too. How does it work? Does Kyrie like having another guy who's going to handle the ball? All those things could just go crazy. And I mean, any team with Kyrie.
Well, you have this lineup. You'll have Kyrie Irving, maybe Joe Harris, maybe Seth Curry. I think it would be Joe Harris, right? KD, think of the length. Ben Simmons, 6'10", long, athletic, one of the most athletic guys in the league, and then you have Andre Drummond. That front line is a beast. So the versatility that Steve Nash has. So the East, if I'm Milwaukee, I loved yesterday or 2 days ago. I hate where I'm at today. I really do. Milwaukee, I thought was a shoo-in to get to the finals, and now it's not going to be easy.
How do all these trades maybe change? You talk about the Eastern Conference and how now everything is shored up, and now you were confident in Milwaukee. Now you're like, not so much. But how does this change things for the Celtics, who are trying to chase that 18th banner?
Yeah, so it's all about matchups. Please give me the Bulls or the Cavs. Please avoid And you never know. Like right now, you can have a bad week. A team can have a good week. I mean, you saw what happened to Brooklyn. They went from 1 to now they're in the play-in tournament. So it's all about matchups. Who do you think that we can beat? I do think if we sign like a big guy in the buyout market, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable going against Philly. I think we match up well against them. But like the Bucks are going to be tough. So I think as we're moving forward, I think there'll be way more standings watching. And then obviously the Celtics want to, kind of rise up and try to stay out of that play-in tournament. But if they match up with the Cavs or the Bulls, I like their chances of moving on to the second round. And you never know who you play in the second round and what they just endured as they got through it. So playoffs, it always comes down to matchups. I just think with all these good teams, if these top 8 teams all make it to the playoffs, then it really is going to come down to that and how grueling every series is going to be.
It's going to be crazy if people don't want to be the 6th seed because the Bucks are the 6th seed.
Yeah, exactly.
As I said, we'll go into the play-in tournament. We'll figure it out from there. So it's going to be fun to watch. The last few weeks will be great.
Or even crazier, like if somehow, the Bucks and the Nets last year, they didn't match up. They were matched up in the second round, but what if they're a first-round matchup, which could happen? So that's where this thing is nuts. It's absolutely going to be crazy, and there's a lot of pressure on, I think, the Bulls, because those guys haven't proved that they can win. The Cavs, they're all just getting there. So there's a lot of pressure on those teams.
Yeah.
Those teams are, quote-unquote, having a great year, and all of a sudden they're playing a team that's probably better than them in the first round. So all of a sudden, it gets the playoffs, it's a roller coaster ride of emotions. And you see players going through that. If you don't have something in your back pocket, thing that you've been through before, it's tough for some guys.